Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Tony Barbarino. I'm a local real estate agent here in Irvine, serving Irvine and Orange County. Today, I have a guest I've been waiting to get on, and boy, we got her. We are going to be talking about staging. Now, don't click off the video. I already know what you're thinking. I don't want to spend the money on staging. I don't really need it. Okay, folks. I hope this video blows your mind, wakes you up to the real possibilities and reasoning behind staging a house when you're ready to sell. And if you're thinking of selling, call me. That being said, I am very happy, can you tell? I'm very happy to introduce my guest, Pamela Coffey. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
It's been a long time coming, and boy, I could not wait to have you in the seat. So, folks, here we go. Staging. Let's share with people what it is, what it should be, and a little history about what it used to be compared to now. And then we're going to go into the business of staging. We're going to get a little bit behind the curtain, so to speak. And there's going to be a few pros and cons about who you're going to pick for staging. And of course, yes, Pamela's here. She's a real pro. Use who you want. But when we're done with this conversation, I think you're going to want to have at least a conversation with her. I can almost guarantee it. Pamela, please introduce yourself so they know why you're here speaking from a position of authority.
You got it. Hi, everybody. My name is Pam Coffey. I am the owner of Next Level Home Staging. We're located in Orange County, specifically in Irvine and Costa Mesa. We serve the entire Orange County area. And we're building some relationships with local realtors and trying to educate as well as, provide some really good professional home staging services. I come from the commercial construction industry of 35 years. My husband and I own a professional construction company. We've done some big projects that you probably would recognize. I won't mention them here. However, I have that background. I'm also a civil engineer by background. I don't expect another home stager to have all these things, but this is just me. And I don't have these because I became a home stager. This is just where I come from. And again, we have a lovely family. We have 3 beautiful adult daughters now that we love very much. But just, once they all kind of grew up and finished college and moved out, I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to go flex my creative muscle a little bit, do some fun things. I still work with the construction company, but I'm doing this as well, and I'm totally enjoying it. But I went out and I got my real estate license. So I am a licensed realtor, official realtor in the state of California. I have that certification as well. But I also went to the Interior Designers Institute. I have their certificate in interior design. And I also have their certificate in home staging. But I also have training from the Home Stagers Resource, which is an accredited program for home stagers to learn how to become a home stager. I have that. And again, I mentioned earlier that I'm a member of the Real Estate Stagers Association. I served on the Orange County board of that association for 3 years, and in the capacity of secretary and president-elect. So that has been a fun and rewarding experience. And of note, we were awarded the top 10 vacant home stagers in the United States by RISA. We're also voted the 100 most influential group of home stagers in the United States. We're very proud of those. We worked very hard for those. And criteria on those, which makes it great. It's kind of like winning an Oscar because it's voted on by your peers. And so the entire voting process is other home stagers that vote on that. So when you can look around and other people that work in your industry recognize what you've done in the industry and what you've done for the industry, not only just in your staging work, but in terms of educating realtors and agents and homeowners about home staging, we're pretty proud of that. So those are some of our accomplishments. And so, yeah.
Whoa. I feel like I should have some champagne here when we were talking the whole time. My goodness.
Yeah.
Clearly, you have some qualifications there. Well, we're really glad you're here, and thank you for taking the time seriously to be here, because as a stager, as a successful stager, I know you're busy, so that's why I'm really glad you decided to be on here. With staging, I know there's a bunch of reasons why people should stage, and there's probably a good handful of reasons, to be fair, why they shouldn't or they can't. When it comes to staging, right off the bat, let's get to the not so nice side is, oh, I have a friend who's going to help me, or I'll do it myself, or hey, I still live in my house. My furniture and my stuff is nice, right? So let's address the people who are not as experienced or not as at a professional level as yourself, using you as a point of reference, because as far as I'm concerned, and people I know that know you, you're legit. Like you're like quite the standard to use. People who don't have your experience or your resources, but they're good people and they're trying to be a stager. Let's talk about that, and then let's go into people who think they don't need it because their stuff is, good enough.
Perfect. Well, let me just start by saying staging. Let me just give you the definition of staging.
Sure.
Let's start with that. The Real Estate Staging, or the Real Estate Staging Association, which is the trade organization for professional home stagers here in the U.S., defines home staging as preparing a residential or commercial property for sale on the real estate market. And that, in a nutshell, kind of tells us what we're doing. We're marketing. We should be part of your real estate team to getting your house, ready to go onto the market. And there's a lot of education behind that. There's a lot of, training behind the scenes that needs to take place, a lot of knowledge that you really have to be a good professional home stager. Now, mind you, again, there are a lot of folks out there that do home staging, and we're not throwing anybody under the bus here today. So we don't want to do that. But it's an art. It's a science. It's not decorating, which, a lot of people confuse the two. And decorating, just to kind of give you a contrast, decorating is personal. It's decorating the house to someone's personal style or personal taste, whereas staging is really kind of the opposite of that. It's not decorating, but it's preparing the home or styling the home in such a way that it appeals to the greatest number of potential buyers that are going to come through. So irrespective of background, taste, cultures, all these different things, and you as real estate agents can relate to this. You've studied. I'm a realtor also. But you know this as well as I do, that, there are a lot of different people that will come through your home from different walks of life. And they all have their different things that they love, things that are offensive, and, things that they don't like. So, you as a homeowner, you're going to put your house on the market. You don't want to have something personal that might turn off a buyer when they walk in your home. So these are all things that we learn as professional stagers so we can avoid those pitfalls. And we get the most number of buyers to click on your MLS photos and see about your property, or that will make an appointment to come view your property.
So it sounds, to say this in the nicest way, it almost sounds like bait on the hook. And that's true for any business, whether you have a donut shop, a car detailing business, a babysitting service. It's all about the bait on the hook. And since the house is the bait, decorating it versus staging it, I think sometimes people, even if you mean well or you're just trying because you think you got it, much like WebMD versus a physician, some people think they got it. They think they can do it. And I can see how the knee-jerk reflex is, oh, we don't need a stager. I got this. And they probably say that because they really believe they can do it. But I'm sure if some of those people, or all of them, were to talk to you and you had 10 minutes to talk to them, it probably would enlighten them. That's why we have her here, so you guys can hear some of this background stuff while you're eating dinner and watching this podcast, listening, going, oh, okay, I was going to sell my $3 million house and just leave it empty. Well, folks, when you go to brand new luxury homes, they're all staged. When you go to multi-million-dollar homes, even just a look-see, they're almost always all staged, because nobody, and I dare someone to correct me, who walks into an empty third bedroom, it's empty, and they go, wow.
It doesn't happen.
Right? So that's what I'm saying, is that I get why staging is something people more likely should do than should not. So that being said, if somebody's looking for a stager, can you give people some examples, like a generic list of a bunch of things they should be aware of when they're online looking for a stager? Now, of course, no doubt you're going to fall into some of those ideals, but is there like a basic helpful list of things? Let's say you quit the business tomorrow God forbid. But let's say you quit the business. And on the way out the door, you yell to the world, if you're going to hire a stager, here's 5 things you really want to look for.
Well, first of all, the first thing I'm going to say is your goal when you're searching for a professional home stager is you're looking for somebody who's reputable. Find a good professional home stager. And the way that you do that is, you can go to the Real Estate Staging Association's website and you can search. Everybody on there has taken the code of ethics. They've been trained. They can help you. And if you're maybe not in their scope of work, they can refer you to another professional home stager that will be able to help you. But do your research. It's just like anybody else that you're going to hire to come do work in your home or that you're going to open your doors to and allow access. You want that person to be knowledgeable. You want them to be well-trained. You want them to be professional. Most people are not going to go grab the guy on the corner and say, hey, can you come fix my plumbing leak? You're going to look up, the best plumbing company you can find. And staging is no different. So do your research. There's a ton of information online, of course. But like anything, when you find a couple of home stagers that you're interested in talking to, ask them, do you have any training? Do you belong to any of the trade organizations that I can maybe talk to get more information about you? Ask to see their portfolio, pictures of work that they've done before. And there's a lot of stuff out there. Make sure it's their work that you're looking at. Look for a website. If they don't have a website, either they're very green and they haven't really established themselves as a business yet, so they may be just someone who's moonlighting on the weekend and doesn't really have the resources to properly do your job. But check for their resources, check references. If they give you references, by all means, obviously don't go knock on people's doors and ask. But, if you can, if there's an email address or if they've got testimonials on their website, things like that, where you can kind of get an idea of what their type of work is and how professional they actually are. And then once you have all that information and you've narrowed it down, set up an appointment, ask for a consultation, and interview them. Have them come to your home, walk through, and ask specific questions. Now, a home stager is not going to give you everything because that's what we do. We sell our services to get your home ready. But basic questions, what's your track record? Have you sold any homes or have you staged any homes in this area before? What was the history? Did they sell quickly? What was the market like? Things like that. What other types of homes have you staged? So interview them like you would for any other, trade coming into your home. And then once you have that, ask about the contract. Big red flag if they tell you we don't have one.
Oh.
And there are stagers out there who do not work on a contract. It's a verbal, or they'll email, you a quote or something like that. If they do not have a professional contract for you to review with all of the terms and listing all of their insurance and all of those things and what's required when they come into their home, what they're responsible for or what they're not responsible for, those are things you really need to look for. And if they don't have that, walk away and move on to the next stager.
Interesting. I see your point now that you're saying this to me right now, this moment, it clicked. And I'm not saying this because I agree with what you do, but to be fair, that's a good point. Just like in real estate, we have contracts. We do. Even if working with a buyer broker exclusive agreement. If you're going to hire me as your agent and I'm taking you on as a client, sign here. And then there's the listing agreement. There's all kinds of agreements. There's all kinds of disclosures. There's things to sign. And I just realized that I've known people who have hired stagers. They're up and coming, and God bless them for working on it, because part of having a portfolio is doing the hustle to get the work, to build a portfolio, and they're probably going to get a lot of no's before they get a lot of yeses. So that said, interesting point about the contract, that you would think if a stager is really, let's call it what it is, you're really truly a stager. This is your business and you want to be great at it, just like real estate. I do this full time. I have no other source of income but real estate. My wife and kids are at home, having a good old time, and that's cool for us. But if I was going to be a stager, I would treat it the same way. Have contracts, have insurance, do whatever you can to get those jobs, to build that portfolio and work hard on those references. And it sounds like I'm talking about real estate, and there's a lot of parallels. You're in the real estate business to a big degree, but it's an interesting parallel. And I like that point about the contracts because a contract should spell out all the terms. What if you fire them, right? Then do they have the right to enter your home and take your stuff? I mean, how do the particulars work? And the insurance. When you told me about that on the phone, we spoke about, well, what if somebody knocks over one of your lamps? What if you knock over one of the seller's own things and they break? Because furniture can get stolen, broken, happen to break through act of God or age. Things get stained. Some things wind up missing. And you're smiling because I have the feeling that with your years of experience, you could probably go on for 3 hours of all the stories of dealing with that. Could you share one story about either theft or damage and having insurance where if someone didn't have a contract and insurance, they would have been sunk? So one of those would be lovely to share really quick.
Those stories are a dime a dozen, I promise you. And I mean, from all different viewpoints. But I know that there's a story that that someone shared with me. It didn't happen to me personally, but it gave me nightmares. And it was a home here in Orange County that had been staged. I mean, it was staged to the nines. It was a multi-million-dollar home that had been staged. And I guess fortunately there were cameras in the home. But some buyers came through. There was a particular agent that was showing the property, and a lot of people were coming through. But unfortunately, the house was left unlocked by mistake. And someone entered the home and knew no one was actually living in the home, that it had been staged. And by morning, pretty much everything in the home was gone. Pretty much everything. Fortunately, again, for the cameras, they were able to catch the person and retrieve the items. But if you can imagine, the nightmare for the stager, which probably had tens of thousands of dollars of their own inventory in that home, but the home seller, the homeowner, who's responsible for that merchandise. Because one thing that people don't realize is that as a homeowner, your homeowner's insurance does not cover the home stager's furniture and furnishings that are in your home. Not covered, people. So it is imperative that home stagers carry their own their own business and liability insurance, just like any other business would have, but also that the homeowner signs off on that. And we also even offer an additional policy that's specifically for the homeowners on top of what we have. So even if it's not a major occurrence, but it's something that could be, fairly expensive, the homeowner is still covered, for the 60 days that they're staging with us. If anything should happen, then we don't have to go back to them and say, oh gosh, your dog ruined our sofa or somebody spilled coffee on our expensive chair and now you have to pay, $3,000 for that chair or whatever it is. So we offer an additional insurance that's specifically for the homeowner that they can add on as a rider to the contract. And it's very reasonable and inexpensive. But again, the stories are a dime a dozen of things that happen to stage furniture. So, and the takeaway from that is your homeowner insurance does not cover that. So if your stager does not carry the proper insurance, you could be on the hook for a lot of money if something should happen while your home is on the market, because most people have no idea. And that's the whole point. That's part of why I'm here today, is to kind of help educate not only the homeowners, but the agents as well. Because I know we mentioned briefly before we went on air that, the staging industry has changed and it's continuing to evolve thanks to organizations like the Real Estate Staging Association, who are pushing the envelope to make sure that stagers in general are more accountable for the services that they provide. And one of the things that I wanted to mention about that is, 10, 15 years ago, people did home staging. That was kind of the beginning of that industry. And it was more the vignette type staging, or, people just brought in their extra pieces that they had and just kind of meander them through the home, just, randomly. But we've learned over the years, and we've got our educational folks that come in and teach us why that's not acceptable, because it really doesn't benefit the homeowner. It really doesn't help the home sell at all. It needs to be done properly. Furniture needs to be the right proportion for the room. There needs to be the right number of pieces in a room to fully, engage a buyer when they walk in. So there's a lot of things that have to be taken into consideration. And one of the things that one of our goals when we started the company is we wanted to bring a more modern approach to the way staging was done, meaning that we brought in higher end pieces, we upscaled the process, we took it to the next level, thus our name, and kind of wanted to do a little bit more than what the average staging company or staging person was doing. We wanted to kind of, steer away from vignette staging because that doesn't really show you anything. And we wanted to make it more like just, when you watch those HGTV shows, when the flip is done and the homeowners walk in and they're excited, they're looking around and they go, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. Look what they did to this home. But it's all staging. It's some renovations, of course, and some paint and some new carpet, that sort of thing. But in addition to that, there are no empty rooms. There's nothing left to the buyer's imagination. The buyer doesn't have to guess what a space is for or what a nook is for because it's been staged and that question's been answered for them. So all they have to do is imagine themselves living there. And that's what staging does. It helps you get those extra buyers in and hopefully you get those bigger offers because you have more of them, So
Yeah.
statistically speaking, you sell faster, you sell for more. And you get it done. And I mean, your home is your most expensive asset. It's the most expensive thing you will probably ever own in your lifetime. When you're going to put that on the market and you want other people to look at it and consider it to buy it, you want it beautiful. You want it to say, wow, as you say. You want it to stand out. You don't want it to look like the neighbor's house. And, we're in California. We have a lot of homes in tract homes and communities where you got 3, 4, 5 homes, just in your neighborhood where they're cookie cutter. They're exactly the same property. You don't want that house around the corner that's on sale the same time as yours to look exactly like yours. 9 times out of 10, that homeowner may not stage. But if you do, you make that small investment and you stage your home, guess what? You're going to get far more buyer interest. You're going to get far more offers. You're going to end up getting, notwithstanding market conditions and things like that staging will not overcome, let's be honest. But all things considered, you put something in. If you don't put anything in, you get nothing out. And that's not to say your house won't sell. It will sell eventually, probably. But will you get the most money or have you left money on the table because you did not, you didn't put a little bit in?
When it comes to staging, I know people listening or watching, they're going to think, well, I don't want to spend, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $8,000, $9,000 or whatever it is staging. You said it best on the phone. We talked a couple of times back, and I want to give you that credit to be fair. I like how you said, well, the people who don't want to invest the money into staging, they better get comfortable when they got to do a price drop, which is often a lot larger of a loss than the cost of staging, and you hope that you get more offers. So let me kind of recap it. When you spend money to invest, you put the money out there, you want the money to bring some kind of positive result, usually in more money or something of value that brings more money, in this case, selling a house. So I'll come up with a hypothetical number. If the person who's selling a house does not want to invest, let's say, $8,000 for a 60 or 90-day staging setup, then if they're selling, let's say, a $2 million house, they'll probably have to price drop maybe $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, $80,000, $100,000. But in that example, that hypothetical example, if they can go back in time a little bit and spend, let's say, $6,000, $8,000, the stats that because this is your business, I know some, but I know you know them better because it's your bread and butter of the business, that staging has a lot of statistics behind it to show that in most cases, I dare say almost all of them, there's a few failures, come on, nobody's perfect, but there's a lot of overwhelming data to heavily suggest real data that says homes at stage sold faster and or for more money. So the people who made the investment of money into staging to sell their home Many of them did so much better. And that is a nice return on investment. Not because I said so, because you as the stager or any stager you hire, it should be in their best interest to really understand a property, to put it together, to dress it up, to prepare it, because the more often you do that well, the more success you have as a stager, which means over time, you're more right than you are wrong. Not wrong bad, it's just you do okay or you do great. So can you talk a little bit about the data or the statistics about staging? And folks, if you're going to say, of course she's going to say that, this is not her data. This is data that's out there on the internet. I'll put links below to help you out, but let's hear what she has to say because she is the staging pro, and that's why she's here. Hit us with data and knowledge, my dear.
You got it, Tony. Well, first off, let me kind of give you what if people, because we get this question all the time. Well, how much does it cost? Everybody says, it's too much, it's too expensive. Well, on average, and this is a ballpark for everybody, the average professional staging fee for a property is between 1 and 2% of your listing price. And that's for a 60-day or 2-month contract. That number will vary from stager to stager and from house to house, from market to market. It's not, it's not a set in stone, but that's on average. That'll give you some idea. And, Tony hit the nail on the head there is research has found that the investment that you spend in home staging is always, always, always less than your first price reduction. Yeah?
Did you hear that, folks? Wind it back. I know you want to look at this pretty face right here. Wind that back a few seconds and play that like 5 times. And real estate agents, if you're watching the show, play this segment to your seller. Call me. Let me know how it works out.
Yeah. It's been proven in the industry. And like you said, that first price reduction, nobody ever wants to have to do it.
No.
But, if you put the house on the market, it's not in the right condition. It hasn't been staged. It's not, I'm not going to say it's not going to sell. Things happen. It will eventually sell. But you're not going to get the biggest return on investment if you don't put in an investment. And staging is an investment towards marketing your home, on the real estate market. So that being said, let's get into some of those stats that you mentioned. The National Association of Realtors, and you guys all know who they are, they did a survey, and they surveyed agents and talked about several questions about whether they staged, whether they didn't, what the price point of the house was, what the return was, that sort of thing, how long it stayed on the market. Well, this is what they found. They found that 85% of staged homes sold for between 5 and 23% over the listing price. Between 5 and 23% over listing. So even if you're in that category that it's 5%, tell me you don't want that. Tell me you wouldn't take that.
Oh, boo-hoo, I made more money.
Exactly.
Boy, that staging worked.
Exactly. So, and depending on, market conditions, look at where we were a couple years ago. I had clients that staged. I had clients that, said, we're not going to do this when the market's too good. We're not going to stage. And the ones that staged still made more, even though because they got more multiple offers, they had more to choose from. And so they could take those higher offers because they were still getting more than the unstaged homes were getting, even in that market. So the house will sell, but don't leave money on the table. Why would you? So another statistic I'd like to share with you is the return on investment. Let's talk about that a little bit. That same survey that the National Association of Realtors did found that for homeowners that invested 1% on staging, 75% of those homes sold for 15 to 25% over list. And that's with the 1% investment. So that's your basic staging. We stage all the rooms and everything just looks, it looks nice. But again, depending on the house, you may need to spend more because it may be a bigger home or maybe will require more luxurious furnishings, that sort of thing. But for people who invested 1.5%, 65% of those people saw the 15 to 25% increase as well. So, there's money to be made there, and it's a small investment for the return that you get. And then finally, Who wants to put their house on the market and it's there for, a year? Who has that kind of time? Who's going to wait a year for their house to sell? That same survey also found that the average days on market for a staged home is 23 days. That's the average days on market, just 23 days. Now, again, these are statistics. Sorry, I can't say that word today. Statistics. It was a survey. They didn't ask every agent on the planet, but, based on the survey that they did, and I believe they surveyed 16 or 17,000 agents, and that's what was found. So the statistics are real. And I know if any of you guys have gone to seminars or you've talked to stagers, you've heard those statistics ad nauseum. But the reason that you've heard them ad nauseum is because they've proven themselves to be correct. And again, like you mentioned, it's an average. There'll be some stagings that won't do as well as others, but again, you have other outside factors that will affect whether it helps or not. But on average, in general, you got to put some skin in the game. If you want that big return on investment, you got to put something in. You got to play the game.
Exactly. And staging, as you said one time, it is part of your marketing because, and folks out there, don't tell me you go see houses without looking on the internet first. It's a whole new world. So you and I, the people watching or listening, I think we can agree there's been a time here and there when you're at work or you're shopping and waiting online, you pull out your phone, and some of you are looking at houses. And let's be honest, again, just like dating, are you looking at the pretty pictures longer or are you looking at the bland pictures longer? It's about catching the eye. So you can have the best photography, the best agent, but if your house is an empty box, could it sell? Yeah, sure. But if it looks great, wow, people will look longer. More people might share it. They may be incentivized to go see it. Wow, does this house look that good? And they show up. So it's about selling the package. So like you said earlier, take away the mystery of the assessment of the rooms or what certain spaces are for by filling it in. And I got to give you credit. When you said that, I remember going into certain homes and seeing certain nooks and thinking, well, you can't put a stereo in there. Well, what do you put in there? But when a stager with all the experience and the training, and folks, like any business, you got to make the effort to get experience. You got to make the effort consistently, persistently to be educated because you never know. And you fill those cubicles, they walk in and go, oh, that's for spices or storage cubicles, or that's a bookshelf. I thought it was for X. So you take away the odds of misunderstanding what some areas of a house are for because a stager should know better than us what spaces are for. So you take away mystery and they're enjoying how things are in the best possible light. So that being said, there are a lot of reasons to stage. Really quick, can you throw us maybe one or two little examples when staging would not apply? Are there circumstances like that? Because not everybody 100% needs a stager. They should, but they don't need it. So are there one or two reasons why they wouldn't need or want a stager? Is there such a thing?
Well, before I answer that question, let me go back to something that you said in terms of marketing. A good professional stager should be a part of your marketing team. So agents, when you're going out on your listing appointments, if you have a good stager in your back pocket, that you can present, that you've talked to, that you've gotten their presentation, you've got the education behind why your homeowner needs to stage their home. When you go in to meet that homeowner, that just makes you look even better and more professional because you know all the reasons why they should stage. You have somebody already lined up that you can present them to that can come in and give a consult. So a good professional home stager should be part of your marketing team. And that doesn't mean you need to hire a home stager personally. It just means that you need to be able to refer a good home stager to your homeowner. And you touched on a really good point, Tony, about the MLS photos. I mean, that is the first impression of your home that a buyer has. I mean, 9 times out of 10, people are scrolling online in the middle of the night or whenever they have time, and they're looking at which homes are we going to go look at this week. If the MLS photos don't show that home in the best light, you really run the risk of a buyer just completely passing you by and not even coming and taking a look, because they can see from the photos things that they don't like and that they don't want to be bothered with. But a good staging in that home, you will not see the stain on the carpet or, some other unattractive feature. That doesn't mean we're trying to hide it, but we want to make the home look presentable so that it entices a buyer to at least come and see the property. And we talked a little bit about, the photos themselves. However, kind of a new kid on the block with staging has been virtual staging. And I don't know if you guys have heard much about that. I've gotten calls where people have asked about it. And there are pros and cons to that, by the way. It's great because it's digitally produced photos of the insides of your rooms, which look like magazine photos on the MLS, except when the buyer gets there and it's not physically there.
It's empty.
And then they have no idea what to do with the room. Wait, was this the room we saw, or was that the room we saw, that had the nice bed and the furniture in it? Because I don't know which one I want to put my bed in.
Whoops.
Again, we're back to the 4 blank wall thing, and unfortunately, because staging is an art. You got to have the eye for it, and not everybody does. That's why it's an industry. So, and the majority of buyers coming in may not be able to properly visualize a space if there's nothing in the space for them to think about. So, virtual staging has its pros and cons, especially when it comes to budget. And sometimes, like you said, staging is not always an option, a realistic option, for whatever reasons, because of course, people sell their homes for different reasons.
Yes.
And sometimes money is just not an option. It's like we just don't have the funds to do it. And we respect that. And so, there's circumstances where staging just is not appropriate, or sometimes, there's a FSBO and it's just, I'm just trying to get rid of it. Just it's going as is. A
time constraint. They might have a time constraint.
Yeah.
They have to solve with urgency, and they don't want to spend time to figure out the staging, have you come to figure it out, to move everything in and get it all ready, then have to move it out. Sometimes there are people that have to sell and just go.
That's very true.
Right? That's a fair assessment. Even though you probably can fit it in, there's probably some sellers and their agent they're feeling too stressed, like we got to do this right now. And there's costs, like you said. Some people just don't want to spend the money, which we are really saying make the investment.
Yeah. Or they don't have it.
They may not have it. And I respect that. We've all had our, hardships that happen. And they look at staging as something superfluous or luxurious, but it really is an investment. But there are people, some of them just don't have the money, and that's okay. That's okay. If you can't do it, no love lost. And then of course, one more point I would imagine that people don't stage is, well, I've seen your photos and your suggestions, but I don't like your taste. Whoops. And you know what? Then you're probably done and next.
Actually not.
Oh, really?
We have
Touche?
we have a response for that. Because typically when we get a response like that, then it's an opportunity for us to educate at that point. Because it's not about our personal taste. It never is. But because of our background and our experience, we know what the buyer wants to see when they walk into a home. And that is what we're aiming for.
Interesting.
So it may not be the homeowner's personal taste. In fact, it probably shouldn't be.
Because some people have an understanding or perception of their own what good taste is, and they're going to judge you based on what they think is right. But realistically, they should defer to the stager, because with the experience, education, and credentials, and if any awards and a portfolio, they should defer to your suggestions within reason. I mean, there could be a little bit of a back and forth, but realistically, this is what you do. And I would like to think, even if I think your taste isn't in line with mine, if I'm selling my house, someone buying my house, they may not like my taste. So I would have to defer to you and trust that you, based on your volume of experience, or any stager with volume of experience, that you can probably make this look really nice to appeal to the largest possible audience. Not 100% people, but as much as possible.
Exactly. And that's always our goal, is we're looking for a broader audience. So it's fine that it's not your taste. I understand that. I respect that. But understand from marketing standpoint of getting your house sold, this is what's going to sell your house. It may not be your personal taste, but again, staging It's not decorating.
I
It's
love
not
that.
for your personal taste. And so sometimes it's difficult. People are attached to their homes. They're attached to their things, and we respect that.
It's personal.
It's personal, and we're always very positive, and we try to, be upbeat about it and make sure they understand that it's not a personal affront to them, that, we don't feel it's a good idea that they keep grandma's vase or, settee or something like that, whatever the pieces may be, that it's more about let's get this thing sold and let's get you the most money for it. So that's always the approach that we take.
What just came to my mind as you were finishing that sentence, it just popped up. I almost want to tell people, or almost want to tell a seller, the type of staging is none of your darn business. If you get my joke, in that you have to trust and I'm saying this with air quotes, the disinterested third party. You don't personally, as a stager or any stager, you don't have a personal emotional attachment to the house you're hired to stage. So I would imagine a good stager could look at a house in a clinical sense to some degree of, well, I love this whole nautical theme near Newport Beach with a $12 million house, but your house is a contemporary style. You're filling it with nautical stuff. That's nice. However, as a stager, we need to appeal to as many people as possible. Might I suggest we get all this out? Because I'm sorry, Mr. Seller, this nautical stuff from 1972, it's not going to work. No offense.
Well, our approach to that, like I said, we're always super positive with the homeowner. We try really hard not to feel like we're offending them or attacking them or any of that. And we always, we'll point out certain architectural features or certain, focal points in a room and say, okay, well, this is the fireplace, for example, and this is why the sofa should face this direction, or the chair should be here, or that kind of thing. And it's great the way that you have it. However, the traffic pattern doesn't quite work. The flow of traffic through the room may not work. Things like that.
Let the real estate agent who takes the listing do their marketing, set up the MLS, hire the photographer, do their job and get the word out. Hold the open houses, greet people, be that professional that can sit to the seller and say, here's what I believe, here's the data to back it up, here's some plans, what would you like to do? But the stager, by the same token, we have to give you more license than not to say, the couch goes this direction, here's why. Well, I love my sectional sofa. I know, Mr. Seller, but it's brown suede, and we have a nice white leather one that would look great on this marble floor. And that's what let's call it what it is, folks. That's what you're paid to do. Any stager, but when I say you, I also mean you as well. A stager is paid to do way more right than I or a seller could. I mean, if you and I had a staging battle to the death, I would think you would win almost all the time. I might get lucky, but just like with real estate, I can come up with a whole bunch of reasons why a house should or shouldn't sell, et cetera, and I might win against you most of the time because that's what I do. So with those stagers in the beginning, we talked about people who are just starting, God bless you. But as a seller, there are people who are going to take a chance, a $600,000 two-bedroom condo. That person just started. Maybe they'll be honest and go, I just started the business, but I'll give you a deal. That can happen. But what they need to do is cut their teeth on the cloth of life to get to where you are, to get those credentials, which require tests to get in and membership. And there's education and a camaraderie at certain levels of staging, which I suspect, along with your track record, justifies your expense. It is an expense, but remember, it's an expense wrapped in a gift of an investment, because no one's paying you for something to do it just to do it. They're paying you to hopefully get the odds of a higher, greater result leaning in their favor, and you have hard data, not yours. You have hard data from NAR to back it up. Now, for someone who sells and go, well, we did okay, but what happened to that percentage? Well, you know what? If we didn't stage, you might have gotten less. Now, we don't know, but you got what you got. You did good, great. We expected greatness, but you got great. Well, what if we didn't stage? Well, what if you got 50,000 less? Oh, and going back to that real quick point, in Irvine, not everywhere in Irvine, but in Irvine, there's quite a few places that are cookie cutter. And if there's 3 homes for sale and people know the floor plan, the more wow your home looks like, the more likely they're going to buy yours.
Let me just interject there. You guys know that word contingencies, yes?
Yes, we do. Oh, God, yes, we do. Oh,
Well, let me tell you, if a well-staged home, when a buyer walks in,
right.
the first thing on top of mind is not how many contingencies can I get here? How much money can I get them to drop the price by because I see this and I see that and I see that. That's wrong. That drops a little further down the list. And it doesn't mean that they're not, they're going to do their due diligence no matter what. But when they walk into a home that looks move-in ready, that has all the proper finishes, that has all the, proper staging,
Right.
they can visualize it as being move-in ready. The first thing they're looking for is not, let me see if the baseboard's cracked or let me see if this is happening. They want to walk through the house. They want to see it. They want to see everything that's done so they can start that visualization process. And so, I tell my sellers all the time, you don't want buyers walking in, the first thing on their head is looking at how can we knock your price down? How many contingencies can we add on here? That's not what you want. So a properly staged home will minimize that and kind of make it a little more worry-free for you. And, the other thing is, too, you want them on that first impression to not think about, I can see all these little things that I don't like. What am I missing? What do I not see? But when the home is properly staged, attention is focused more on the nice features of the home, the size of the rooms, the use of the rooms, the use of the different spaces in the room, in the house. And that's what you want buyers to think about first and foremost, because that's what eventually makes them want to make an offer on the house. And again, back to photos, your MLS photos, when you're looking at that, a lot of times you can tell just from the photos whether the home's been staged or not, or if there's been an attempt to stage it, but it's been done improperly. And so, those are the ones that get swiped. Nobody wants to go see those because they can already see the problems in the photos. They already know when they walk into that house that it's not really what they're looking for, but we'll go take a look. And one other point that I wanted to make on photography, and then I'll leave that alone, is a professional stager knows the angles of the rooms. They know what those photos are going to look like before the photographer even shows up. And I'm going to recommend, especially to a lot of seasoned agents and newbies alike that like to take their own photos. It's a great time saver, yes, but your photos will not look as well as using a professional photographer. Please use a professional photographer because it will enhance your home staging. All the work that your professional stager has done, finish that by using a good professional photographer.
Yeah, don't go as far as staging and shortcut yourself in photography, because in most cases, in my experience, photography costs less than staging.
It does.
And that's why people go, yeah, definitely, let's do photos. However, let's say hypothetically your photo package is $600, $800. Well, imagine if you spend, let's call it what it is, folks. Let's say it's a few $1,000 and the house is staged A to Z, amazing. Just like the multi-million-dollar developers who almost always stage their model homes, right? They do it. Maybe there's something there, folks, huh? So when you stage it and then the photographer comes in, that 1-2 punch, wow. I've been doing this 18 years now, and to this day, literally, I can go into a brand new development with model homes that are staged and walk through and think, oh man, so this is what this house would look like done up like this. I like this couch. Some of the master bedrooms that have some of these little en suites in them. Well, if they're empty, and I dare people to look at homes that have big masters with a little en suite, like a little sub living room to it, or a nice generous little sitting area. And when those rooms are empty, I think most people who never had those kind of rooms would say, wow, this is a really big master. What's all that space for? I think staging takes away a lot of the what ifs. It takes away misunderstandings. So when it's staged, it solves mystery. You want mystique of a home, but you don't want mystery. What are these cubicles for? What am I supposed to put over there? So staging solves that. Staging gives people a reason to want the house because they get it. Now, could you have a big empty house and sell? Yes, you can. People like myself, I can kind of see it in my head. I think I can, but we have to appeal to the mass audience. Let's not make the buyers have to work their imagination trying to fit imaginary furniture in a room because I've been in open houses where they go, well, we just bought that couch last year for like 4 grand. I don't think it's really going to fit here. Do you have a ruler? And then you measure and they go, well, I'm not really sure. And you can hear their dreams of that house, buying it, spiraling down the drain, which means they walk out and they probably don't buy it. Congratulations, the $8,000 you saved on staging is probably going to result in situations like that in a price drop, and nobody wants that. We, as an agent, we want you to make more and more money on the sale of your house. So I would imagine most agents who are good, they tell the seller to do staging, but they would highly recommend it because really the seller has the final say, but we could back it up with data, maybe based on listening to this podcast. Yes, I'm helping some of my peers out that they can listen and go, oh, these are some pretty good points, huh? And they can talk to their sellers. So I know there's going to be some newbies or people that are not really in the business. They might be afraid or uncomfortable bringing it up because the last thing they want to tell their seller is, and by the way, before we sign a listing agreement, if we stage it statistically, blah, 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 and I think we can get more, but it's going to cost you $4,600. What?
Yeah.
As a pro, if you can truly share it, not sell it, it's easier to justify and explain and lay it all on the table for the seller and let them absorb it. Most of them should go, you know what, that's a good point, huh? As opposed to, I don't want to spend that money. Because really, if they talk about the money first, and so much so, you got to find out why are they so sensitive to it. So there's always something behind it. So I would say in summary, the odds, the data, and the experience of people like yourself, you wouldn't be in this business, doing this business, especially at your level, if there wasn't enough of success to justify your existence. Your thoughts?
Well, you made a very valid point there, Tony. And I mean, you don't want to sell it. It's not something that you should have to sell to your clients. And we get all of our calls, 90% of our calls, they don't want to know anything else. They just want to, well, how much is it?
How much?
My 3-bedroom, 2-bath, how much is it? I say, well, every house is different. Every property is different. Every community is different. So pricing will vary. There's no set in stone that says a 3.2 it costs this much to stage it. It just varies. And so I always recommend is before I give you a hard and fast number, why don't we meet? I'll come out and do a consultation. We'll walk the property, and then let me give you a price. Let me tell you all the benefits of what we do, talk about what our services are and what we provide, and then you can make a decision. Because without that, you're only looking at a number. And going back to when you're choosing a home stager, I never recommend that you make your decision based on price. And the reason why is that, again, pricing will vary from stager to stager. A professional stager is never going to be your least expensive option, okay? They're going to be somewhere in the middle, and depending on the property and everything else, they may be on the higher end. But 9 times out of 10, that lowest price quote that you get, you are not going to be happy with what you get because either they have no expenses because they're not a legitimate business, or they're working out of their garage and they're going to bring you stuff from some of the local home improvement stores and put that in your house and call it staging.
And they return it too. They buy it, they use it, they return it on refund. I've seen people do that.
You've seen people do that? So, I mean, you really need to be wary. If they're giving you a low ball, question it. Well, why are you so much lower than everybody else? Where are your sources? Where are your furnishings coming from? Do you carry insurance? And all those questions and those things that we talked about earlier. So I always encourage people to not make price the determining factor when you're choosing a professional home stager. Choose somebody that's going to do a great job for you.
Well said. And you know what? There are people who are like agents. There are agents that know what they're worth. They really know it. And when they talk to people and they present themselves, it's sometimes easy to get it like, oh, okay, I see why you charge what you charge in your compensation. And then there are people who just sacrifice the money to do anything to make a buck. They want to do a good job, but they sacrifice it based on money. Well, every physician, every accountant, every lawyer, every good real estate agent, when you meet people that know their value, they know the time and education and effort they put in that nobody sees, and you can stand your ground and say, as a stager, as an agent, as a doctor, this is what we do, each in our industries, and this is why we charge what we charge. And the people who can truly afford it, they need some convincing. And there are people who just are so obsessed on price. So real estate agents that get minimal compensation, you should question those. Stagers who get minimal compensation, there's nothing wrong with questioning that.
I do actually work with a few agents that are that way. It's part of their listing appointment. It's part of their listing presentation when they go visit a new
Good.
client. They say, you know what, here are my terms as your agent. My stager that I work with, can I have her come in and give you a consultation? We have different things. The agent sometimes will cover the cost of the consultation. Sometimes the homeowner covers it. But, agents are all different, as you know, and they all have their own way of running their businesses. But, we do have some agents out there that are doing their own home staging. Good for them.
Yeah, I know a few of those too. They're trying, and I applaud the effort.
Kudos to the ones who are doing it properly. There are some agencies out there. They either have in-house staging crews that they work with who are trained in staging, and that's the way to go if you're going to provide your own, full service type business. I have no issue with that. Well, I don't have an issue with any of it, quite frankly. You do what you're going to do. But, if you're trying to save a few bucks, you're not really benefiting your homeowner by bringing in the extra furniture that you have just laying around and saying, okay, we'll stage it for you. It'll be part of my fee. It really, in my opinion, does not benefit the homeowner in the way that having it staged by a true professional home stager would benefit them. In addition to that, things like knowing about market trends and design trends, just to kind of stay aware so that when you're staging, you know that maybe something that you're using may be a little outdated, for the area that you're working in, and it's time to bring in something new. And we do that all the time. We're constantly bringing in new product.
Things change. And I think, by the way, quick side note, when you talked about people, stagers, they have supplies. Are you one of those that have like a warehouse, like a big inventory of your stuff, like ready to go?
Yeah, we absolutely do. Our warehouse is located in Costa Mesa, and we do a lot. We spend a lot of time going to furniture markets, things like that, trying to see what's current, and we're always bringing in new merchandise so that our inventory is current. We'd have turnover sometimes. The inventory sells with the house, but we do what we call shopping the warehouse. When we have a job, we go in and we know what the particulars are for a particular job, and we go in, we do a space plan, and then we go in the warehouse and we pick which items are going to go on that job. One other point that I wanted to make, Tony, is that, we talk about the trends and that we try to stay up to date with them, but we don't let the trends drive everything that we do because, again, it's the individual features of every home that's most important, and we just, we use our knowledge of the trends to figure out what we can incorporate, what we can't, what we should, and what we shouldn't. So, we go to furniture markets throughout the year, and, we shop according to, what we think we'll need for the coming year. And everything in our warehouse goes with everything else. So there are no pink sofas or anything out of the ordinary in there. But along with that, they're on trend. They're up to date. They're what someone would expect to see when they walk into a well-furnished home. Something else that we're doing with the Real Estate Staging Association, because they have been pioneers and been very instrumental in educating us as professional home stagers. So for all of the new stagers, we kind of talk about new stagers and people who are just getting started. If you're looking to, improve, or you're looking to get more education and to become that status of professional home staging, RESA is a great resource to start that. All of the educational resources are there, the names of all the accredited programs that you can sign up for. They do a wonderful job with webinars and all sorts of things on their website. So if you become a member of that organization, there's a plethora of information available to you. And step by step, you work your way up to becoming that professional home stager and, being able to really benefit the industry. And one other thing that we do, yes, we have competition in our industry. And unfortunately, unlike real estate, we don't have a governing board that says, that you can be, like you can't practice real estate without a real estate license, for
Correct.
example.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
However, you can be a home stager without having certain credentials or education. Anybody can hang up a sign and say, I'm a home stager. But as an industry, for the protection of the general public, we're trying to, with RISA, trying to elevate that industry and make sure that it's a little bit more, what's the word? A little bit
Structured, organized,
Yeah.
protected, I guess.
a little more organized, and so that, when the homeowner wants to talk to a home stager, they have a certain level of trust there that that's a professional home stager that will do a good job for them. So, and it's not a knock because you have to start somewhere. So I
Yes,
just wanted
exactly.
to mention that, RISA does a huge convention every year in Las Vegas, which is so much fun. But everybody's there, everybody networks. Like I said, there's workshops, there's all kinds of things that are there. So you're constantly learning and getting better at it. And so in terms of competition, it's a healthy competition, but there's also cooperation. I will refer another stager if maybe I'm busy, I'm booked, or if it's out of my area, for example. I'll get a call from LA and it's like, you know what, let me go to RISA, let me find a couple of my associates that are in the group with me. Hey, here's 3 stagers. Call one of them. I'll let them know that you're going to reach out to them and they can probably help you out.
There are some people that are in the business, thank God. There are some that are trying and they're getting there. And there's a whole lot that shouldn't be. Agents or pizza makers or shoe shiners, doesn't matter. You're going to have those 3, right? Many that shouldn't, some that are doing it and maybe get better. And then there are a few kings on the hill. So speaking of kings on the hill, my God, my dear, I can't believe I got you here. Thank God. So thank you for sharing. Any last minute parting thoughts to the sellers that are thinking about staging and parting thoughts for people in your craft that are trying to get to your level?
Sure. I think just to the agents, because again, there are voices out there to the homeowners. We're there to help. We're there to help put more money in the homeowner's pocket and in your pocket at the end of the day. So we're not there to take anything away. We're just there to make it a little bit better for everybody and get those homes sold faster, quicker, and for top dollar.
That's the name of the game, is success for the client, right? The better we do for our clients, the better we all do.
Exactly.
So, Pamela,
It's been a pleasure, my friend.
thank you. Thank you so much. Folks, I think we covered a lot. Any questions or concerns? Her information, all her links will be below in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, and follow. A couple of clicks like this with your finger might really change people's outcomes for the better. I appreciate it. I'm grateful for you being here. Thank you so much. My name is Tony Barbarino. I'm a real estate agent here in Orange County. I live and work in Irvine and serve the surrounding areas. Pamela, if somebody needs their home stage, I really hope they at least make a phone call to you.
Sure. And visit our website. We have links for getting a free quote, for sending us an email, or if you just have a question, you want an answer. So give us a call, reach out to us. We're there for you. We're there to help.
At least share this video so they can hear about her and either want to work with her or they become more educated to make a better decision about the staging, maybe. But thanks a lot. I'll see you next time. Like, share, subscribe, and follow, and we'll see you on the next video. Meanwhile, good luck with all your house selling and house hunting. I know it's tough out there, and we are here to help. Thank you, my dear, for being here.